All right, next week's presentation will be the annual update of Lake Chapala. Spoiler alert, it's still wet. This is a presentation that used to be given annually by Dr. Todd Stong, and but obviously last year it was cancelled because of the COVID. So this is update of conditions on Lake Chapala and area villages infrastructure. Todd will present the initial year's update of COVID-19 comparison between Mexico to the USA, Canada, and Europe. He will also look at the state of the nation's largest lake, that's us, and various projects in the villages about the lake, plus a focus on the 3 key water project actions needed in our region. And he will give us an update on childhood kidney disease in the villages from Chapala eastward to the end of the lake that may be impacting the lives of about 30,000 children. Dr. Todd Stong's 27 years in humanitarian service have focused on water-related projects in rural Africa, Asia, and Latin America. As a West Point graduate, Colonel Strong served as a construction engineer for 15 years in Korea, Vietnam, and Germany, followed by 15 years directing research in federal laboratories. He has 6 engineer sons. There you go. Now this week's presentation. We have Dr. Daniel Acuff. Your life is a battlefield. Your weapons, power, control, and domination. So Daniel is now going to reveal how you can win at the game of life without cheating. Now, Dr. Acuff's doctorate is in philosophy, sociology, and education. He has been a seminar leader, a radio talk show host, and a marketing consultant for more than 40 major corporations. He is author of 15 books, including 3 philosophical, spiritual works of fiction, God Lied, What's Really Going On Here, The Mistress of Kwan, and Golf and the Zen Master. Please give a warm and safely distant welcome to Dr. Daniel Acuff.
Morning, everybody. Can you hear me out there in the gazebo? Okay. All right, well, let's have some fun today with power, control, and domination. All right, everybody stand up. All right, now look around. You can see the rebels are still sitting. You're not going to tell me what to do. Okay, sit down. All right, stand up again. One person? Oh, it's my girl, Murphy. All right, Murphy. Well, I was going to do that 5 or 6 times, but you rebels just cut me off. Well, that's a simple exercise to demonstrate power and control. Sometimes it feels like, well, he's not going to tell me what to do. He's not going to control me. And then some people are conflicted, not you, but some people get conflicted and say, well, should I stand up or not? They look around and see, is anybody else standing up? Peer pressure. Not like some who would just follow the crowd like lemmings toward the cliff. And at the last minute, stop. But the crowd is pushing you over the cliff by that time, and you're gone. So you have to watch out in life. Dangerous business. Several times throughout this presentation, I'm going to ask you to share your thoughts and feelings with a partner. So if you don't have a second person, at least near you where you can talk back and forth, when it comes time, you might want to change your seat or just take a chair and move over to somebody else. If there's 3 of you in a chair and you're going to be obstinate, which is very possible, you're going to need to share between the 3 of you somehow. You'll figure it out. Okay. So, B's, you're going to decide who's an A and who is a B right now. Who's an A and who's a B with your partner? And if you have 3 people, there's going to be a C, I guess. Okay. So B's go first on the first share here. You have about a minute, little over a minute, to briefly share a time in your life when you felt out of control and powerless. For myself, it was a divorce. I didn't want the divorce. She did, and she went for it, and I felt completely helpless in the whole process. Out of control, I had no power. So share with your partner or partners a time in your life when you felt powerless to make something happen. Okay, stop. Thank you, partner. A little applause. Thank you. What happens when people applaud, everybody has to stop talking, so that helps. Okay. Where there's life, there's conflict. Wherever any living things coexist, plant, animal, human, there's most likely the struggle to survive and the impetus toward thriving. Even before the first fish walked on land, the organisms and creatures of the sea busied themselves 24/7 with trying to stay alive and ultimately to thrive. Plants compete for space, nutrients, water, and sunlight. Animals kill and are killed for food. Humans are the most sophisticated. They attempt to navigate through the jungles of control, domination, and power. It can be serious survival business. Power and the lack of power often is a life and death matter. Less dramatically, conflict occurs in our everyday lives in multiple ways. For our purposes, sometimes we could call it power games that people play. If you're addicted to the news, like I am, you never have any problems finding conflict and struggles for power and the ability to control outcomes. Just yesterday on CNN and Huffington Post, I guess you can tell which ones I watch. In Myanmar, where the military has taken over and begun to shoot protesters dead, a 19-year-old angel for freedom, Mai Kai Sin, was shot in the head and martyred. To add insult to injury, her flower-covered grave was dug up, her body extricated, and the grave was filled with cement, so she could continue to be a martyr in full view. Harry and Meghan are feuding with the royal family. China and Russia are becoming best buddies as the U.S. forms what's being called a Quad alliance with Australia, Japan, and India. The battle for world dominance intensifies. China is amassing much more military capabilities. The GOP struggles to find its identity given the rift between establishment conservatives and Trump's followers. Meanwhile, a struggle between the Dems and the GOP over voting access blazes away. More moderate Democrats are dealing with the progressives and the conservative Mr. Manchin. Things got ugly when a Uber driver refused to give 2 passengers a ride for refusing to wear a mask. Dr. Seuss is under attack. Amazon is fighting against unionization of its employees. Microsoft and Google have taken to fighting in public on issues ranging from patents to stealing search results. It's maskers versus non-maskers. Open up the economy full on versus keep it conservatively open. Biden condemns vicious hate crimes against Asians, and that's just yesterday. The struggles for power, control, and domination go on and on. While you and I may not be able to exercise any great power or influence over world and country embattlement, short of a few letters to our senators and congresspeople, we do have our own past and present conflicts to deal with. For the rest of this morning, I'm going to invite you to explore with me your current uses of power, control, and domination, and others' uses of power, control, and domination around you. We'll also look at how these forces have played out in your past. It's likely that you've garnered enough wisdom and practice with the power game by now, at this age, and most of the power plays you became involved with have primarily taken place in younger years as you work things out, or not. Nevertheless, it's an interesting and perhaps insight-producing trip that I'm asking you to take with me this morning related to power, control, and domination. There are three basic, fundamental principles related to power. The first principle is the definition of power. Power is the ability to cause to happen what you want to have happen. If you can't make things happen, you have no power. For example, if you don't have a car, you need to get bags of Walmart goods home, and you can't find a taxi, you're temporarily unable to make that happen. If your Spanish is not much beyond buenas mañanas and gracias and repita por favor, you, no doubt, often may find yourself frustrated and powerless to get someone to understand you. If you own a home and you want to have a swimming pool installed, but you don't have enough money, you're stymied. No power to make that happen. If, on the other hand, you do have the money and you contract with workers to construct a great swimming pool, then you have the power to make that happen, and you get other people to do the work for you. You have power over them. One of the worst power predicaments is if you or a loved one have a physical challenge or an illness, and you feel powerless to make that problem go away. All right, you're going to share again with a partner. A's go first this time, or C's, whichever. Share something with your partner that you really, really wish you could make happen, but you feel powerless to make it happen. A's go first. Go. Okay, stop. Next person, switch. Make sure you get time for both people to talk. Okay, stop. Thank you, partner. Okay, that's the first principle of power is if you want to make something happen and you can make it or you can't make it happen. A second principle at work in the power game is need. The principle is this: whoever needs the most in any situation or relationship is less powerful and potentially vulnerable. The bottom line is that if you need too much, you're vulnerable possibly and poised to lose. Remember the book, Women Who Love Too Much? And whoever needs the least is in a position of power and possibly control or domination. Examples: Martha and Bill have settled into a sexual pattern of making whoopee a couple times a month. But it wasn't always like that. For years, Martha was frustrated and felt powerless to change things because she needed more physical attention. On the job, you may have wanted a raise and felt it was deserved, but you were the one with the need, and your boss had the power to say yay or nay. It could be something simple like you need more time alone than your partner. So I'm going to skip this one just for purposes of time, but I was going to have you think about it for a second. Share with your partner a relationship, share with yourself a relationship you were in which you needed something more than the other person. And think of what happened. A third principle at work in the power game is between any and every human being in relationship and among many social groups such as families, religions, political parties, and countries, there's an ongoing battle for control and domination between every two. Could be very subtle, it could be huge. This ongoing conflict may be as relatively inconsequential as parents trying to get their kids to clean their rooms, a daunting challenge, or is the survival-threatening conflict of possible nuclear war? Cases in point. The currently experienced conflicts between Republicans and Democrats is an obvious example. When it became a 50-50 split in the Senate, that changed the political power game enormously. And the whole world struggles with the COVID pandemic. The issue of to wear or not to wear a mask, just to name one part of the conflict, has become politicized. Very interesting, and to apply to your own life, is something called the power hierarchy. Maybe some of you have heard of this. It's the pecking order. What they did was they took 100 chickens, young chickens, who had never experienced each other. They were strangers to one another, and they put them together in one chicken coop. And what do you suppose happened? Within no time at all, they started pecking each other. And after about 10 days, a pecking order emerged. Top chicken emerged. Nobody pecked number one chicken, but he could peck anybody he wanted. And it wasn't quite 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to the bottom. But there were lieutenants who could peck people below, chickens below them, but not the top chicken. And the ones at the very bottom, guess what? They got pecked to death. And this is true, they did. They got pecked to death. Because once a wound occurs in a chicken, they go after that. It's just the way it works. What if somebody put chains on the doors here and locked us all in here and we can't get out? And we're here for 3 months with only the food that's available and the fish in the pond. And the cats, leave the cats alone, come on. But if that was it, and water, well, there's probably water here, but no food. What would happen after about the 4th month? Something akin to an airplane crash in the Himalayas or somewhere, and people having to think about eating each other to stay alive. But what would happen here really? I think you're going to find out that there are 5 domains of power. Physical, so the strongest might have an advantage. Smartest, intellectual power. They might figure things out in a way, but somebody might become the boss or try to be. Social power, which is the same kind of thing like status. Ethical power and emotional power. Some people might, get real cry and, vulnerable. Just imagine, what would it be like for 3-4 months here, no food? We'd probably have to fight it out, I don't know. So, you're going to share with a partner now. Bees go first. Thinking of the power hierarchy in your family while you were growing up, who wore the pants in your family? What were the consequences of that? Bees go first, go. All right, switch. Who wore the pants in your family? All right, stop. Thank you, partner. Okay. And I assume there probably is more to that hierarchy of power. My older brother, Mark, was number 2, and then my dad came in 3rd, I think. So again, the 3 fundamental principles related to power are that power is the ability to cause to happen what you want to have happen. Number 2, between any 2 individuals or entities, there's most often an ongoing battle for power or control, even dominance. Number 3, the individual who needs the most is potentially in a vulnerable position. The one who needs the least is potentially in a position of power or control. With these 3 basic principles in mind, we're going to explore together the different domains of power that everyone has available. I'm going to use a battlefield metaphor of a bow and arrow to illustrate these domains. Each domain is what I'm going to call a weapon available to you on the battlefield of power in your life. Each is an arrow in your quiver that you can pull out when needed. There's essentially 5 domains of power: physical, intellectual, emotional, social, and ethical. One at a time, we'll explore them. Your physical arrow, it's any use of your body or an extension of your body, like a gun or a rock or a bomb, to gain power, control, or dominate. For example, you could use your physical strength in a positive way to assist someone, like pick them up when they've fallen, or you could knock someone out of the way of a speeding bus, or knock them in front of it. You could also physically fight with someone for whatever reason. That might be a negative use of power, unless you were fighting to protect someone or in self-defense. So you can see there's power used for the good, power used negatively. In fact, merely having a certain physical presence, size, strength, can result in others attributing physical power to you. There are some who say people who are overweight subconsciously don't want to lose their girth because it may lessen their perceived power and therefore their ability to dominate. Studies of power related to real estate agents have shown that success comes somewhat more easily to tall realtors than to short ones. Tall realtors are often perceived to be more trustworthy. It has to do with people subconsciously feeling that a taller person is more protected. Physical skill. People use their physical skills to gain power or to win. In sports, this is obvious. In other domains of life, less obvious. In relationships, such as marriage, each partner brings their own set of physical skills to the relationship. She may be adept at dancing and also better driver. Sorry, guys. In any case, a relationship inherently has certain dependencies that get established. You take charge of the yard, honey. I'll do the interior decorating. These roles can be very cooperative and functional, or could become a battleground. Attractiveness is in the physical domain of power. All cultures have physical attractiveness. They value physical attractiveness. Like it or not, more attractive female competitors interviewed for a position by men are often more likely to be hired. It's a common plotline in entertainment for mostly women to use their physical sexual guiles to seduce men. Attractive males can also exercise a bit more power than unattractive males in certain situations. Leading men in entertainment and politics sometimes are typically very attractive. It's been shown that men tend to value attractiveness more than women when it comes to searching for a mate. Females certainly value attractiveness, but other personality and social factors enter into the dynamic, such as the male's financial situation, his personality, and sense of humor. Go to dating sites and read ladies' profiles, and financially secure and sense of humor is mentioned continuously. Before we go on to intellectual, emotional, social, ethical power, we need to pause for a minute and look at the uses of power, because any one of those arrows, those weapons, can be used for the good or negatively. So, let's just take physically, for example, since we're still on physical. I can use it in a nurturing way. I can use it in a cooperative way. It gets a little trickier when you go down the line toward the negative. Competitive power, physically. Then we have manipulative power, when you can use any use of the body to manipulate. And abusive. So to nurture, you could use your body to nurture, to take care of another, to protect someone, or provide them with pleasure. To cooperate, to join another person or group on some physical task or activity. To compete. Your physical power arrow, you can use it. The greatest athletes will tell you that they prefer to compete against equal or superior adversaries. This is actually a nurturing form of competition in most cases, as it results in good for both parties. Competition can also turn ugly and result in negative, harmful, or abusive outcomes. Hockey players and others have gone beyond allowable aggression and have seriously injured opponents. Even beyond game participants, competition has spawned violence. A dad, for example, was killed by another dad at a Little League game years ago. To manipulate. There are two common ways that an individual or a group or even a country can manipulate via the physical arrow. The first is via the threat of physical harm. If I threaten you physically, I'm essentially attempting to evoke fear in you and therefore acquiescence to whatever I am demanding. The second is sexual manipulation. If I hold out the carrot of sex in order to either get you to do what I want or feel a certain way, then I'm shooting the physical manipulative arrow at you. Also, finally, the physical can be used to abuse, and this one is obvious. The atrocities that people have committed and are committing against their fellow men, women, and children abound in history and around the world today. The killing of protesters in Myanmar is a current painful example. The siege on the U.S. Capitol is another. Remember, physical power is any use of the body to gain power. All right? A's go first. You're going to share. Thinking about your past or present, share with your partner a time when you use physical power, such as size, strength, skill, attractiveness, or sex, or had one of them used against you. A's go. When did you use physical power, or have it used against you?
Very important position in my field that I like to from the position of my body, rather than whether I could do the task.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So, I'm not quite sure, but when you
Okay, stop. The other partner share. When was physical power used against you? When did you use it?
I have a couple people that for once pretty much stay and all that. Trying to
Speed things up again. Thank you, partner. Physical power, the use of physical power is the first arrow in your quiver. Second is the intellectual arrow. Any use of the intelligence, knowledge, better, or skill, mental skill to control or dominate. In any relationship, the one with the most computer savvy can dominate in that domain. Someone who's fluent in a foreign language could exercise power in a nurturing or competitive way, or cooperative. Growing up, my older brother, Mark, he knew most everything, at least according to him. And God bless him, he was very smart. But what a pain in the arse a lot of the time. His downfall happened when he married a lady who was as smart or smarter than him. They got a divorce. Think just by yourself, think, in my family, who dominated intellectually with their smarts? Who was always like the one who knew the answers? And maybe he made you realize and acknowledge that he knew the answer, or she. The third emotional arrow, we got physical, intellectual. The third one is emotional. Any use of the emotions by way of using any emotion or the emotions of another to gain power, to control, or dominate. When you get angry at someone, you're essentially, most likely, you're causing fear, whether it's your intent or not. Shaming, emotional, you're causing guilt. So, and think again, who in your life used or uses anger to control or to get their way? For some of us, it might have been your parents. Certainly my mother would use anger, and my father was very passive. And that's, it's one or the other, usually. Or if they're cooperative and they share emotional power, then that's the best. The fourth domain is very interesting, the social domain of power. Here we're talking about status. What gives a person status? The boss of the company, the president of LCS, where's Steve? There we go. A certain amount of power comes with status. How about money? If you've got money, you can make things happen. If you got a lot of money, you can make a lot of things happen. And if you don't have much money, you are sort of more vulnerable and behind in the hierarchy of status. Also, something you don't think about sometimes, but effective communication and persuasion. Politicians who can persuade, for example, it's a social arrow, a social gift, a social power. Status, money, social skills, persuasiveness. The fifth domain is the ethical arrow. Any use of guilt, like using should or shouldn't, as you exercise moral superiority over others, or they exercise it over you. My mother was quite good at that little finger. Well, I remember one time we were at bingo, and I was about 6 years old, I think, and I was allowed to roam about. And she gave me the look from across the room. You know that look? She gave me that look, and it stopped me in my tracks, and I got down and I went and sat down behind her. That's a should and shouldn't in a very powerful way. So think about who in your life, either still today, runs you in a way with should or shouldn't. You shouldn't do that, you should do this, you should think this way. Why are you thinking that way? You should feel this. That's the ethical arrow. Morality. They pull the morality card on you. Okay, we're going to share on that one. A's go first. Who in your life had the irritating habit of shaking their finger at you and telling you you should or shouldn't do certain things, or you should or shouldn't be a certain way? A's go first. Go. Stop and shift. The other person goes. Who used to shake their finger at you? Okay, stop. Thank you, partner. So those are the 5 key weapons in your quiver. Physical power, any use of the body or an extension of the body to exercise power over another. Then you have intellectual, any use of your intelligence or someone's intelligence and their skills, mental skills to gain power. Emotional power, any use of your emotion, anger, fear, love, hate, to mess with other people in their lives, possibly, or you use it or they use it. Then you have social power, which is one of the most strongest kinds. Status, money, the ability to persuade, motivate. A lot of power in that. Think of your own life and your own status in life then and now.